Love is the most beautiful feeling in all the universes. This feeling forces loved ones to go through unbearable trials, a frantic feeling that cannot be expressed in words. The young lady wrote the same letter hundreds of times, but unfortunately it never reached the recipient. Because it was abnormal love, it was a witch's love, and it cannot be explained in words. It is not like that of people. A young and very beautiful young girl helped an old woman. Because of her fierce beauty, her peers called the beauty a witch behind her back. As soon as they saw her, they started pointing their fingers at her and saying that she was casting a spell again. Young girls saw a blonde person when she was helping her grandmother. They knew that it was Brad's grandmother. They also knew that lately she had been getting worse and worse as she was sick and therefore came to the witch. Young boys witnessed what was happening and without thinking twice, came to the defense of the blonde girl. One of the boys said that she knew medicinal herbs and decided to help her grandmother. He also told them to stop their unnecessary conversation. Philippa began to tease Mikhail. The girl repeated that since he was on her side, he was her prince. The young man asked Philip to stop teasing him, but she did not listen to him and continued. Another boy supported Philippa. One of the girls said that the blonde girl really liked the young boy, and he probably wants to burn at the stake with her. Mikhail heard their conversation and frantically shouted at them to stop since they had grown up, and there was no need to tease each other like that. Mikhail told his friends that Cordelia knew everything there was to know about medicinal herbs. However, in this era, if you are very handsome, smart, or wildly talented at something, you will be mistaken for a witch. Cordelia is one of the most attractive young ladies in their settlement. Many boys her age, as soon as they see the blonde beauty, immediately begin to drool and look at her with such an expression on their faces as if they want to take possession of her. But there are two young men who do not look at her with such a frantic desire to take possession of her. They despise young guys who can't control their emotions. Also, in the small town, there are young girls who are furiously jealous of Cordelia. Their envy develops into anger and ridicule. And it's also not uncommon that girls can't get enough of bullying. Philippa is one of those who constantly teases the blonde girl she does not pass by and constantly teases her. Looking at the girl, we can say that she is more suitable for the role of a witch. A young boy met Philippa and said that the Baron had ordered him to make candles. Philippa said that this was very good since he could live on this money for 2 years. The boy said that this money would go towards paying his taxes. When he came closer, he saw what the girl was doing. She threw tomatoes at the door. Philippa said that he scared her and asked if he had come to the witch to pick up wax for candles. He looked at her in confusion and said that he had come for wax. The boy looked at Philip and asked where she got the tomatoes since he guessed that they were from the field of a fat lady. Philippa confirmed his words. She said she stole them and pointed out that they were ripe and very juicy. The boy was furious at her action. He asked her why she was leaving their door since he was sure that it was very ugly and wasteful. The woman was furious when she saw how the tomatoes had been viciously spoiled. She screamed furiously at the blonde girl. The woman was sure that she did it on purpose. Cordelia, in turn, shouted that it was not she who did this, and she did not understand what had happened. But the woman was persistent. She accused her of theft as well as vile damage to her property. She said that all the facts were clear since her bag ended up on the girl's table, and she deliberately smeared tomatoes on the door. Everyone stood and watched the woman quarrel with the girl. Everyone present whispered and were perplexed as to how the girl could do such a thing. They were sure that this was the most wasteful thing. She was their scapegoat. Mikhail came to Cordelia's defense. The girl was very surprised, but at the same time very glad that he took her side. But unfortunately, since everyone gathered rallied against her, he didn't really help her. When just one person becomes a scapegoat in the eyes of others, nothing will help him except one thing: disappear from their sight. People are cunning, and before they can get rid of one scapegoat, they move on to the next weaker link in their chain. The man listed all the goods that were on sale. He hesitated when he saw that Madame Vicky had few tomatoes. He told her about this. She replied that one girl had destroyed all her supplies of tomatoes. He said that she should catch the culprit of this problem and asked her whether she could handle it. All the people in the market were whispering about Cordelia. They were excited and at a loss how she could show herself in public. After the incident, young girls also supported the criticism of their elders and condemned the girl who was not guilty of anything. The men discussed everything that was happening. One of the grown men told his little friend that he should go and make candles. The young man said that he needed to wait until the mold hardened and also needed to finish the candlesticks and decorations for the lamp. The man asked if he needed to cover everything with silver and said that he could help him. The young man was a little surprised, but thanked him for his help. The man told the boy not to be shy and ask for help if he needed it. The other men said that the boy had talent and they had high hopes for him. The young man only laughed in response. Philippa was throwing tomatoes at a tree. The boy said that Mr. Beetle had set aside a day's tax for the fat lady. The red-haired girl said that she could do this every day. He was surprised by her action and asked why she was doing this. He also said that she could ignore her because he hated her so much, and he asked what she would get out of it, adding that she was making things worse for those who were already in a bad situation. She looked at him with contempt and said that he would not be able to do anything but talk about it and called him one-armed. The boy was a one-armed candle maker with one less arm. He could do a worse job. So his candles are only suitable for a pigsty. All the residents of the town knew this. After the witch, he is second on the list, a scapegoat for all residents. Colin stood and looked mysteriously out the window. Men came to him and asked where the silver candlesticks were because they wanted to look at him. Colin said they were on the table somewhere. The men were at a loss because they did not see them. The young man was no less puzzled than they were as he looked and said that the candles were also missing. The men asked where he had put them. The young man began to remember where he had been all day and where he had gone. Colin said he went to Cordali's house to buy decorative flowers. The men looked at each other. There was fear and anger in their eyes. People went to the orphan's house and saw a terrible picture. One of the men said that there were candlesticks and candles lying on the ground and they were all ruined. It takes them a whole week to make new ones. He was at a loss because the tax had to be paid tomorrow. The man knew that the Baron could not tolerate delay, and he could sentence everyone to death. Residents of the small town were shocked. They didn't understand who did it all. One of the ladies saw a blonde young girl and grabbed her by the hair. She said that she was guilty of all their sins. The woman screamed furiously that she would only bring grief and misfortune to all residents. The young man could not stand such a spectacle and stood up for her. He shouted that she had had enough and he would not tolerate this abuse of an innocent girl. All the residents of the city blamed her for all the troubles. Young Mikael took her side, saying that she was not guilty and that they had no evidence. The young girls shouted that it was all her fault and was hiding behind the man. They claimed that Cordelia was very cowardly, and because of her fear, she enslaved him. Residents did not stop throwing accusations at her, and some individuals also resorted to insults. The men shouted furiously, not only at the poor girl. They disturbed the peace of the one-armed fry and demanded that he say something, since all his works were destroyed by the blonde girl. The man said that he had every right to be angry and give the girl what she deserved. Colin stood next to the red-haired girl and said that he did not think that the blonde girl did all this. He knew for sure that all the tricks were Philippa's fault, since he had seen her committing sabotage more than once. The girl looked at him with a furious expression on her face, but later only smiled. Philippa approached Colin quietly, took the knife, and using his hand, stabbed herself. She screamed that he had taken her by surprise, and he made her terrible secret public. Residents were perplexed by what was happening. They were scared, surprised, angry, and at the same time glad that they had found the witch. Looking at them, Philippa said that she was a true witch. The girl decided to have a little fun one last time and scare the residents of the small town. She said they were a little spoiled and not suitable for eating, but she could trade quantity for quality. The young man said that they would not allow her to do anything, and there would be no one to harm. All the residents supported his words and said that there were more of them and they could cope with it. They screamed and wanted to kill her, while the men went to attack the witch. Women and young girls discussed the blonde girl in a fit of emotion. They said that she had not done anything and that she was very good. She doesn't look like a witch at all. The real witch did everything on purpose to fool them and slandered the blonde girl. The residents dealt with her in a fit of furious anger. Men and women thanked the young boy who helped them deal with the witch. After the massacre of the witch, some said that they needed to drink. Others said that they needed to tell the church so that they could be given an honorary title and medals. There were also those who said that everyone needed to calm down since tomorrow was tax day. One of the men said that the Baron would definitely like the news, and he would tell him everything tomorrow. The blonde witch arrived at her destination. After looking around, she told Philippa to climb out a little more carefully. The girl told her to take her hand. She asked Philippa if she could use magic since it was buried very deep. Philippa said she didn't need to use magic, since there is a risk that she will also be exposed. She also said that little Lily could help her. Lily said she didn't want to help a master who made his minion do strange things. The blonde girl said that Lily had every right to be angry at the moment, adding that Philippa should not have gone that far. Philippa was a little perplexed and did not understand what she could do in this situation that would suit the blonde girl. After all, she knew that she really liked the young man, and she had to help her. The blonde witch said that she understood everything, but this was a very difficult situation, and she could have looked for another way. She knew that Philippa had been hurt, and she hated it very much. Philippa said that everything has already been done and nothing can be changed. They talked, and Philippa reassured her friend by saying that they were celebrating and would not come to them yet. Their conversation was interrupted. They looked in fright at who came to them. A young man came to them. He just stood and looked at them. The blonde girl grabbed the knife. The boy asked her to calm down, saying that he would not do anything. Then, in a fit of anger, she grabbed him by the throat. Philippa shouted at her to calm down as he would not harm them. But the witch said that he saw them and urgently needs to be killed. Philippa looked at her and said that it was just a boy and he would not tell anyone anything and asked her to believe her. The girl looked at him with contempt and let go of the knife. She left a bruise on his neck as a souvenir. Cordelia asked her sister to quickly leave the village as people from the church would soon come. Philippa said that she knew their plans. She assured her that she would deal with them and everything would be fine. Colin stood and watched their conversation. His neck hurt very much from the touch of the witch. Cordelia said in tears that if Philippa left now, it would be many decades before they saw each other again. She promised her that next time she would burn at the stake instead of her. Philippa looked at her and told her not to say that after all the witch is still very young, Cordelia has suffered so much to get her happiness. She also told her that human life is very short and she needs to be happy, to live life with your loved one. Cordelia said she would try to live it well. They hugged each other and said goodbye. Cordelia left and turned around and looked at them for a long time. Philippa looked at the one-armed boy and asked if his neck hurt. Colin looked at her in bewilderment. The girl said that Cordelia is very strong. She used her magic to heal him. After healing, she looked at him and told him to come home, since he is too young to go out with them at night. He was a little confused and shouted at her to wait and not leave without him because she was using him. Philippa said that she used him because he was just a good boy who was looking for proof of the blonde girl's innocence. But unfortunately, nothing worked out for him, and she helped reveal the truth to people. They stood and argued for a long time. She told him to return home to the village, but he was angry and said that he would not come back. Colin did not understand why he had to return to such an unpleasant place. Philippa said that it would be very dangerous for him to walk alone at night and reminded him of the fairy tale of Hansel and Gretel. Philippa told him that now everything would be fine in their small town. He was surprised. She said that their feast in connection with the murder of the witch would last only a couple of days, and then everything would be as it was before Philippa said that they would pretend and forget about what happened and find another scapegoat. The young boy shouted that people do not change, and everything will only get worse. Philippa screamed in rage that this couldn't be happening and everything would be much better than it was. She said she guarantees and he can trust her. The boy was confused. Colin said that she was a witch and he couldn't really trust her. He asked her why she thought it would only get better. She looked at him with joy and said that the evil witch was no more, so everything will be fine. And she added that he could quickly return to the village. Philippa said that he could have a little fun and take a few strands of her hair, telling all the residents that he caught her running away and killed her. Colin looked at her and said that he didn't want anything from her. He grabbed her familiar and walked away from her. The witch shouted after him that he could not do this since he was her familiar. He left anyway. She screamed after him for a long time so that he would take her hair or nails, but only give her her familiar. Philippa was wandering in the twilight of the night when she heard the voice of a boy. He told her from afar that she was late. Philippa was furious and did not understand how he came before her. He said that this time she ran in such a hurry that she even put her familiar behind. He threw the familiar into her hands. Philippa caught him and asked in bewilderment why he was pursuing her. She said that he could have stayed in other villages they were in, and also asked him not to make her life difficult and to go their separate ways. He said that she said this several times, but it didn't sound very believable. In each new village. As they walked, she told him that he should leave her and settle somewhere else. She screamed at him that he was just a child and he should settle down somewhere and live a normal human life. Colin just looked at her and said that he had no family. He is an orphan and he can do whatever he wants. They arrived in one of the new cities and went to the hotel Philippa wanted to rent a room for them to live in comfortable conditions. The woman looked at her and asked how she was coping with 2 children. She knew that it was difficult with one alone, but the girl had 2. Philippa became embarrassed and said that it was so. She added that they slept on the street for a couple of days and said that any discount would be very significant for them. The woman said that she would now see what could be done. The young man asked the witch how much she had bargained with her. The witch said that the woman was very nice and saved them a lot of money. Colin looked at her and asked if she was really sensitive to money. The witch said that given that her alchemical abilities are negligible, she needs to save money. Colin asked what she was good at. Then, the witch hesitated, not knowing what to answer. Colin looked at Philippa and said that the only thing she was good at was that she could manipulate people like him. Colin wanted to leave. Philippa asked him where he wanted to go. He looked at her and said that he wants to go outside and show you off, since she doesn't need him here. She looked at him pitifully and asked him to stay and not leave her. They slept together on the same bed. The young man could not sleep for a long time. He was angry and also embarrassed and decided to go to sleep on the ground. Young witch woke up and saw him sleeping on the floor. She thought that now it was no wonder that she was cold at night. They sat at the table and ate. The owner of the establishment approached them and said that they could arrange a tour of the city, since they have many stalls. The witch thanked her, saying that she had been there many times and her son had not been there yet so they could go. Colin sat and listened as the men who listened to their conversation were surprised how they could be related if they didn't even look alike. Their mini-family was discussed, and they said that they could not be a family since the young man was very mature, and the mother is very young. The young boy held his sister in his arms and said that Philippa was very bad at acting. The witch was furious and said that he could not mock her and her teachers. The young man was a little puzzled by the fact that she had teachers. The witch decided to show him her teachers. She took him to the performance. After watching the performance, he could not understand what the woman had learned. Philippa looked at him with tear-stained eyes and said that the performance was amazing. She learned a lot. Colin didn't like the whole performance and was disappointed. The young man asked how a witch could learn anything from people. Philippa said that since she is a witch, she can learn a lot. First of all, she must learn to blend in with people in a crowd. He was puzzled. Colin told her that witches hunt people and they cannot live together in peace. Philippa said that it is not they who are hunting them, but people who are hunting the poor witches. People are afraid of everything. They don't understand. Hearing her words, he became very angry because he knew what she was doing in his small town, and I decided to leave. Lily asked why the mistress allowed him to be near them. The little girl said that he had a very difficult character. The witch said that her magic did not work on him for some unknown reason. She tried memory distortion, visual hallucination, but nothing worked. Philippa thought that maybe he had some kind of ability or special resistance to magic. Lily asked, why not just run away from him completely then? After all, she can fly away from him on her broom, or move to any other time and place or country or dimension in just a few seconds. The boy sat in the room and thought about what happened. He escaped. But when he realized that he had nowhere to go, he had to return, since he was just a child. Lily went upstairs, took the boy, and together they went downstairs to the table. They ate. The witch was very clumsy. Philippa spilled the drink on the table, and Colin began wiping her hand. Everyone looked at them and asked, "Which one of you is the mother, and which one is the little child?" Philippa laughed and said that her boy was very smart. The young man was very angry since he had to play a small, clumsy boy, and moreover, her son. Colin got angry more than once when he lived with the witch, but still he stayed with her and did not leave. He grew up and was engaged in the craft of making candles. The witch was relaxing on the bed enjoying cookies and tea. Philippa said that this time they would still stay in the city and live. The boy and Lily were shocked by her words. Philippa and the boy lived together for 5 years. The young man grew up, but the witch did not change at all. She was very young, just like the first day. The owner of the hotel said that the boy was very old, so it was time for him to live in another room. The owner's son asked the young man if they were really mother and son. The woman told him to watch his words. Everyone in the hotel wondered how it was possible that the woman had not aged a single day since they had settled here. The hostess said that it was not their problem and there was no need to bother her visitors, because she knew how difficult it was to raise children alone. She said that she raised the young boy on her own and did not expect to hear such words from him about other people. He said that he was not the only one who thought so. Everyone else thought so too, but decided to remain silent. She said that he had no feelings, no decency, and asked him to shut up. She also told all visitors to mind their own business. The guests quickly ran away in all directions. The boy said that he wants to change the room. The witch asked why he decided so because they behave like a son and mother. He was a little puzzled and told her that she was sharing the same bed with such a big son. Philippa said they get along great and sleep very well together without any issues. She asked where the child got the money to pay for the room. Colin said that he is no longer a child and can provide for himself, and there is no need to treat him like a little boy. He left them and said that he would come for dinner since you would be in the city, and later he would pick up his things. A young man opened his own kiosk in the city, and it became very popular. His new friend said that he needed to open a store and move to the Artisan's Alley, since there he would have more opportunities to earn good money. The man said that wax crafts sell very well among young ladies. He also said that if he moved to a new place, he would be able to create very expensive, beautiful candles that would bring him very good money. The young man said that he was not going to move since moving would bring a lot of trouble. The man looked at him with misunderstanding and said that he was a father and should provide for his family since he wanted to give his daughter to a good man. Colin looked at him and said that this was not his daughter. He remained silent without saying anything. Lily was sitting near the young man's shop when a friend saw another familiar. The little girl had lost her owner and was screaming at the top of her voice. The blonde witch told her not to talk like that in a crowded place. Keelan and Cordelia sat drinking tea with their familiars. They chatted casually, and he told his whole story after they last saw each other. The blonde witch was shocked that he had been living with her friend for 5 whole years. She was perplexed as to how this could be. After thinking a little, she said that after all, her Philip had a kind soul. Cordelia asked the young man if he agreed with her. He thought about it and decided to change the topic of conversation. Colin looked at the little girl and said she was very cute, adding that the girl reminds him a lot of Mikael. The witch said that it couldn't be any other way since she changed it many times so that the girl would look like him. The witch said that the process itself was tedious and very difficult. Colin asked how and what she did. He thought that a witch could cast a spell on a child in her womb. The witch laughed and said that he made her laugh with his words. Laughing, Cordelia said that she would never give birth to a child. She wouldn't want to ruin her body and gain excess weight. The young man was stunned by such a statement and looked at her in bewilderment. The witch said that this is actually her familiar. She is a bluebird. It will not be difficult for a witch to transform a familiar into a son or daughter. The witch said with sadness in her voice that if she had given birth to another woman for her husband, he would have loved her, not the witch. After the meeting, Lily and Colin walked to the hotel. Lily said that witches love in different ways, but among themselves, their love looks the same. They came to the hotel and saw an incomprehensible and terrible picture. The witch was sitting on a chair near the table, and she was surrounded by bodies everywhere. The young man looked at her. He instantly understood why Lily was in such a hurry to see the witch. He asked what happened. Philippa replied that several men suddenly tried to grab her. The young man asked whether she killed them or not. The witch waved him off and said that she did not kill them, and the red liquid around was just a spilled bottle of strawberry wine. The young man approached one of the men and stuck a piece of the bottle into his throat. The witch looked at him. He puzzled her with his action. She asked what he was doing. Colin replied in a calm voice that since she did not kill them, he would do it instead. Philippa didn't understand why he was doing this. Colin looked at her and asked what she didn't understand about this situation. The witch could not utter a word. Not wanting to continue the conversation on the topic of murder, the young man asked where Lily was. Philippa said that Lily was casting a mind manipulation spell on the innkeeper and the others who were present at the hotel. The witch looked at him and with a smile on her face said that with the help of a spell, they could all forget that the witch and the young man, mother and son. Colin said they could stop pretending, and he could settle in this small town and open a shop that would bring good income on the men's alley of artisans. The witch supported him, saying that he could then mix with the crowd and live with people as before he wanted. The crushed and lost young man asked her if she was not his mother, then who was she? Without waiting for an answer, he said that he had had enough and they would go their separate ways. Everyone would live their own lives, since the witch had wanted this for a very long time. Philippa looked at him and said that she would do as he wanted, and finally she will fulfill one of his wishes. Colin was a little puzzled, but with a grin, he asked her what kind of wish she wanted to give him. Philippa said that she could do anything. Looking at her, the confused and puzzled young man quietly whispered his desire. He sincerely hoped that she could love him. Hearing this, the witch ran to him and rushed to hug him. She looked at him and tenderly told him that she loved him too. He asked quietly out of pity. Over the last couple of years of their lives, they got married and began to live like a real family. Their family life was like a fairy tale. But unfortunately, death came as unexpectedly as family life. The witch was very surprised when she saw him. He found her, the happy young man looked at her, and he asked her if he looked strange with 2 hands, also adding that he is back. The witch and the young boy continued to meet again and again. She was also beautiful and young, and he changed his appearance many times, each time in different countries and formats. Several times he came to her very late and apologized for making her wait so long. Another time he came too early and was very young, but fortunately they could be together longer. Unfortunately, sudden death always took him. The witch reassured him, saying that she was already accustomed to waiting for him, and it won't be difficult for her to wait for him a little longer since she lived forever. After her words, he became a little embarrassed. She laughed. Entire eras have changed since their last meeting. This time, the young man was very smart. He was even surprised that his project to build a highway would bring profit in such a difficult time. He knew their factories were operating at maximum capacity thanks to this project. The young man was constantly under the surveillance of the communists, but this did not stop him from making his wife happy. They spent time together, and Jonah said that she wanted him to make her a swing and a slide. They found themselves in a very difficult time. Wars and coups haunted them. The man was talking on the phone and couldn't believe what he was being told. He was told that his people from the plant were taken to the gas chambers as the purification was taking place. He was as angry as ever. Colin was incredibly disappointed in people. He was also angry because of their heinous deeds. He told his wife that she was right. She began to calm him down, saying that everyone has their shortcomings. The witch said that because of shortcomings, people become precious. The man said that this is not the first time she has said such words, but at the moment, he does not understand their meaning. Colin said that on his way, he saw a lot of kind people and a lot of mentally retarded people, but what struck him most was his encounters with evil people. After thinking a little, he said that he would go and deal with the bad people, and this time everything would work out for him and everything would be fine with them. Philippa laughed and said he looked like a hero. She asked him if he needed her witch's blessing. He just laughed at her suggestions and left. Unfortunately, his showdown did not lead to anything good. The witch saw from the crowd his lifeless body, which was hanging and did not show any vital signs. She heard only the conversations of the men standing near her. Some knew him and admired his actions, while others despised him. They said that he was the boss of the communists. Some said that death suited him very well. The witch stood and listened to all their conversations. She was amazed by their words. Philippa knew that death was a common thing at such a time, but after their evil words towards her husband, she became very angry. Philippa used attack magic and killed everyone. She asked Lily how she was feeling, adding that in all this time she had never learned to control such magic. This was the first murder of a witch in the entire history of her life. Lily had never seen such atrocity before. It is impossible to say for sure what thoughts were raging in the woman's head at that moment. For some time, she still sat next to her husband's lifeless body, but having gathered the strength of Philip, she decided to leave him. Unfortunately, no one else saw her and could not find her. A group of young girls and a stranger were walking along the road. They were a little upset because they had to swim across the river instead of walking along the road. Unfortunately, they had no other choice. Since the bridge was closed, the only way to get into the city was through the river in which the killer shark swam. The young individuals communicated with each other. They wanted to find some cozy place so they could dry out and rest a little. They saw a hotel that was in good condition and had not even been touched during the war. This surprised them very much. When they entered the hotel, everyone looked at them intently because they did not expect to see strangers in such a place. All the locals knew that the bridge was closed, so that strangers could only get to their town through the river. They were very surprised at this since there were killer sharks there. One of the local men looked at the strangers and said that they were very suspicious. He pointed out one man in particular who looked very strange as he wore a dark hood. The hotel owner approached them and told him not to pester new visitors since she had not had new guests for a long time and she had to somehow survive in wartime. In order to relieve some of the tension between the guests and the old visitors, the man who was wearing a hood said that he was treating everyone to drinks at his expense. Everyone sat and drank drinks while talking about the progress of the war, as well as the latest news. One of the men present said that their protector had returned. They praised him as he protected civilians and destroyed dragons and demons. One of the men present took off the stranger's hood, and everyone saw his face. They were shocked because it was an ordinary person. But unfortunately, in such a difficult time, the human race was almost completely exterminated, and they did not expect to see an ordinary person in such a strange place. Everyone present in the establishment saw that the man was missing one arm, and they realized that this was not an ordinary person. This was their savior, a one-armed black storm. They were surprised because they did not understand why he would fight for the chimeras. The young man said that race does not affect helping others. Everyone present was shocked by his words. They asked him to tell him about his last battle. They wanted to know everything about how he killed the dragon. The men asked him to show the sword with which he killed dragons and all kinds of evil spirits. They animatedly circled around him and asked about all his exploits. His chimera girlfriends looked at him and were no longer even surprised at this turn of events because they knew that there was always lively action going on around a man. A young man met an elderly man. He asked him why he decided to fight on the side of the chimeras. Since man has always been against chimeras, Colin said that he does not hate them since he grew up with them and was also an outcast among people since he was inferior in their eyes. Colin said that he wants to defeat evil and remove tyranny forever. The drunk man began to tell different stories. He also began to tell a story about a scary woman about a witch, which brought only misfortune to everyone. Colin is shocked that the woman's name is Philippa. He was amazed to the core since they crossed other parallel universes, but still their paths crossed with each other. The girls walked with Colin to the Demon Lord. The girls were a little puzzled by the fact that they met very few soldiers on their way, but they thought that the Demon Lord was already losing his grip. Colin walked forward, and on his way he met a little girl. As he walked further, he saw a red-haired woman and told her that her castle was in very bad condition. She looked at him and asked where the other girls were. He said he wouldn't talk about other girls in front of her. She asked how he could leave his comrades alone. Colin looked at her and said that this was the worst place she had ever lived. He asked how much time had passed since their last meeting. Looking at her, he also added how she could do such a thing. The witch said that she could not stand the presence of people she did not like the way they breathed. She was irritated by their presence, their smile, their actions. He calmly approached her and said that the main reason was that what she did was that people killed Colin, decided to defuse the situation, and joked a little about his death. The witch was furious at his words. She asked how he could joke about such a topic. It hurt her to see him killed since he just wanted to help people, and they hung him and threw stones at his lifeless hanging body. He hugged her and said that everything would be fine now since he was next to her, and they could live happily. She looked and just laughed, saying that this wouldn't happen since he was a hero and he had to finish everything now. He was very surprised by her words and didn't understand why she suddenly wanted this. Philippa said if he doesn't do this, then she will destroy this world and go to another wait for him for ages, because witches live forever. He didn't want to do this, but the witch asked him. She said that she had never asked him for anything before, not for flowers, not for gifts. She wanted him to do it with his own hand. He was angry, saying at her words that he would prefer that she asked for jewelry or some kind of gifts, or to get a star from the sky. He did everything for her, but he couldn't do this. As always, with the same names and the same faces, the boy and the witch looked at each other. The young man was covered in blood. His girlfriends ran up to him and asked if everything was okay, because they saw blood on him, and there was a lot of it. T just said that he was fine, and they needed to get out as quickly as the castle would soon collapse. Their victory over the dark forces was celebrated by everyone around them. They could not believe that it was all over. And he defeated the evil witch. After many years of tyranny, everything ended in an instant. Everyone present glorified him. Everyone shouted that he was a hero and he saved them. They also said that he brought evidence of his victory. They saw the witch's hair. The witch asked him to cut off her head with a sword before she cast the spell. She desperately wanted him to end her life before she destroyed the world where they lived. Everyone around was chanting his name, saying that he was a hero. But unfortunately, he was not happy about this. He wanted to be with the witch, but Colin couldn't understand her sadness. He did what she wanted. He became a hero to others. He knew that in this world their love was over, but he promised to wait for her all his life, even if she doesn't come. Then in other worlds, now he will wait for her forever. For a witch, a familiar is like a part of oneself, and for a familiar it is also an expression of power. This is why witches take many animals and make contracts with them. However, when they try to escape, the witch cuts off their limbs. Despite this, the animals still try to escape. Lily knew that her mistress Philippa was different from other witches. After all, she was crazy. The witches sat, drank tea, and discussed their animals. One witch was very concerned that when she used her magic, her animal ran away. The witches discussed not only their familiars, but also people. Philippa said they were very nice, and she saw 2 guys stand up for another guy 3 days ago. The other witches asked her to tell her more. Lily looked at her in bewilderment. She knew the witch had her own plans, and she was surprised that she still didn't have her first love. But when the witch had her first love, you could watch it forever. Lily was skeptical about the young boy. She asked the witch why she chose just such a cute boy. Lily said that she would not be fooled like her mistress. They sat near the fire. He slipped her food. Lily said he didn't want to, and he couldn't bribe her with food. But when I already took a piece and tried it, I was very pleased. Lily knew that her mistress was not just playing at love and family. She had truly violent feelings for the boy. Philippa will continue to wait for him for hundreds or even thousands of years. The witch fell in love with him anew every time and experienced violent feelings. But unfortunately, these feelings quickly broke her. Lily knew that this was the 15th world they had traveled to since he was brutally killed. The witch destroyed everyone who came into her sight, even if they were not people. Lily told her mistress that she should stop and asked her what she was going to achieve by doing so. Colin told his girlfriends that he would go alone and they should not follow them. Lily knew they came through 5 dimensions. However, they still met and wondered why now she knew that there was nothing more left. Her gentlemen are crazy, and the boy has become a hero, and all that remained for them was death. After everything Lily saw, she no longer believed in love and said that she no longer liked it. Lily stood in the rain and cried. Her whole world collapsed in an instant. She knew that love had destroyed their entire happy life. Lily lay on the grass and thought that her mistress had acted very rashly this time, since they had not concluded a proper contract. and she did not leave with her. She knew that most likely they would not meet again. But I also knew that this was the best option, because she didn't like love and didn't want to experience the same feelings as her mistress. Her thoughts were interrupted by a young man. It was the general who approached her while he was making a tour of the territory. He asked her what she was doing here. So young, she asked him to leave and not disturb her. The witches sat and talked about politics and witchcraft. They were discussing each other. One of the witches said that they were having problems with the blonde witch, since she hunts indiscriminately on all people. Cordelia looked and said that her sister was looking for trouble with her, but if she wanted it that way, he could arrange it for her. But the girl said that she was just worried about her condition, because of her actions, people are starting to hunt for them. Kazarline asked if she should play at love instead of hunting. The blonde witch was very angry with them and said that instead of attacking her, they could do something useful. When she left several times, she insulted them all. Everyone was excited and shocked by her words and behavior. Her grandmother said that she had not met a witch like Cordelia in 1,000 years. She asked her to calm down and stop. The witch was very angry and decided to go hunting a little. Unfortunately for her, the hunt turned out badly for her, disheveled and covered in blood. She sat near a tree and waited for the man to arrive. They discussed it furiously. They wanted to take possession of her to be the first before anyone saw her, and they did not take her. The witch heard all this but promised to kill them. She wasn't going to give up that easily. A young boy saw the disheveled witch. He and other adults looked through the forest to catch and kill her. He was excited and scared. The witch knew that if he called the adults, she would kill them all, and later they would kill her. The boy stood not understanding what to do, when suddenly he heard his name called and asked whether he had found something or not. He hastily threw his jacket at the witch and shouted that he had found nothing. He said he just saw a bird and was scared of it. He approached his father and he asked where his jacket was. The boy hesitated and timidly said that he was simply frightened by the shot and did not know where he was. His father looked at him. He was very angry because this jacket was very expensive, but he said that it was still not worth taking it with him, and he asked me not to tell my mother about it. The witch sat and looked at the jacket with confusion. She wondered why the young boy helped her. The witches saw chaos in their home, but it was just a blonde witch, a young witch. She was very angry and scared. She screamed that she fell in love with a person, and she didn't understand why this happened to her. Cordelia screamed that this was impossible, and that she could not fall in love with an ordinary boy. Philippa shouted that falling in love with a human child is the most wonderful thing that can happen. The blonde girl was furious at her words. She cried, and Philippa hugged her and consoled her. The witch asked what was wrong with her. Maybe she's just sick and this isn't love at all. Philippa reassured her, saying that it was not an illness and everything would be fine with her. Philippa suggested that she take it and walk. They went to the performance. Philippa was very glad that they went to a play about love, but Cordelia didn't think so. She sat and thought about the little boy who is only 9 years old and she is 90. She didn't understand why she fell in love with him. She had no reason to love him, and she told herself that it was not true that she had not fallen in love. But after watching the play, she realized that there was no reason for love and she loves him just like that. A little girl was walking and entered the property of an old grandmother who was dealing with medicinal herbs. She ran away from her screaming. The grandmother shouted after her so that she should not walk near her persimmon tree. Her mother began to defend her and said that because of such actions, the old woman would not be able to marry her granddaughter. The old woman looked at her and said that she had no granddaughter and that she was simply delirious. The woman looked at her in surprise. She had no idea how an old woman could forget her family, adding that she only has one granddaughter. The girl came out and told the woman that she was very sorry, and she asked her for forgiveness, saying that my grandmother temporarily had memory problems. The children who were walking heard a noise and were afraid. They knew that the noise came from the old woman's house. They thought there was some kind of fight because they heard dishes being broken. The old woman did not shout passionately that the girl was not her relative, and this was some kind of lie, and that the mayor had sent her to ask her for alms. She screamed that she wouldn't give a penny. Subsequently, she beat the young beauty. The young witch thought that the old woman would be very useful to her. She brainwashed her. Everyone thought she was her granddaughter. But for some reason, the old woman did not succumb to magic. Cordelia did not understand why this was happening. She had heard that some people have a stable immunity to magic. Cordelia wondered why such a problem had occurred now. She just wanted to kill her so as not to bother her, and she said it out loud. The woman was furiously surprised. There was fear in her gaze. In a fit of emotion, she flew out into the street and saw young children near her house. She screamed for them to call adults for help because the witch wants to kill her. The children ran into the scattering and shouted that the old woman had gone crazy and was just calling her granddaughter a witch. The woman, clenching her fists, shouted at them that they were all crazy and this is not her granddaughter at all. One of the boys asked her to calm down and pull herself together. The boy was dumbfounded and excited when he saw a young girl leaving the house. The blonde girl was beaten and bloody. She looked at him with wide eyes and couldn't say anything. The old woman shouted that he should not look at her and that they were stupid children if they could not understand that she was a witch. The girl looked at the young boy and did not understand what was happening, whether he believes the old woman or not. After their daytime skirmish, the blonde witch was very angry and destroyed the floor of the old woman's house. The old woman shouted at her to calm down, but the girl was furious. She could not control her anger and screamed that her love for the boy was useless. She will kill him and destroy the entire city. As she went outside, she saw a letter looking at it. I realized who sent it. She saw cute, clumsy handwriting. It was written by her young admirer, Mikael, asked her to forgive him, that he did not tell her personally everything that he felt, and apologized to her that he could not help since he was still small. He asked her to wait until he grew up and became strong, and then he would help her. The blonde girl stood reading the letter when an old woman flew out from behind and asked her why she stopped. She asked a question and wanted to know the answer. She desperately wanted to know what her new plan was, and what is she going to do next. The witch turned to her and said that she was a very rude and worthless person. The old woman looked at her with fury. She did not expect such words from the witch. The girl was sure that she would suffer because of the old woman, but she was pleased that the young boy was worried about her and sent a letter, and with it he gave her a rose. The old woman continued to furiously shout at her and threaten her with a knife. Cordelia looked at her and used her magic to sit her down on a chair. The witch approached her and said that she knew that the old woman had been stealing money and things from ordinary townspeople. The girl said that she would remain silent until the last moment while she sat there quietly. She invited her to unite. The next day, the blonde girl walked and looked at the flower that the young man gave her. She was very glad that he wrote her a letter. Because of this, she loved him even more. Suddenly, she saw a young little girl. She was the daughter of the owner of the herbal house. She heard that her father was very cruel and was not surprised when she saw her very rumpled. She was beaten. A young boy approached her and gave her a flower. She accepted it. Cordelia was surprised and very angry. She furiously beat the tree and shouted that she would kill everyone who came near her. She cried because she thought that the young boy gave the letter and the rose only to her. Philippa asked her to calm down, saying that the boy was just very kind, and he decided to console the beaten girl. The blonde witch screamed that she didn't want him to be kind to everyone. She wants him to be kind only to her. Later, Cordelia and her grandmother passed by some townspeople. One of the women asked if her grandmother had been diagnosed with something. The girl said yes. The grandmother replied that no one should talk to her since she was a witch, and she could harm them. Everyone stood and looked at her. The old woman also told children not to come and use her well. Cordelia saw her father again mocking the girl. He shouted that she was clumsy, only spoiling the goods and reducing their sales. He said he would teach her a good lesson when they returned home. All the men passed by with a smile on their faces when they saw the father beating his daughter. Only one boy stood and watched with a furious look. He wanted to help the girl, but unfortunately he was too small and could have suffered and died from the man's rage. Cordelia wished that he no longer existed so that she could continue to live normally. Arriving home, she sat and thought about how she could kill him. She was angry with herself for sitting and thinking and worrying about one person. The witch did not understand why the boy gave her that flower. Why does she have only thoughts about him in her head? And finally, why when a girl is beaten, does the boy take so much care of her? The witch was upset. and did not understand why love could be so painful. She wanted to cast a spell on everyone. All worries disappeared in an instant when she heard a noise outside. She knew that the old woman had not returned yet. Since she began to leave home more often, going out into the street, the girl saw a letter and a rose. She was happy about this cute gift, and she didn't understand why he sent it to her again, because she was very different from that little fragile girl. She was very pleased. Hearing a noise in the backyard, she decided to go there. When she arrived, she saw a terrible picture. Her grandmother lay dead. The man was dead, and only the girl stood and looked at it all. She asked her what happened, but the frightened girl could not say anything. The father was furious and beat the girl again. He shouted that she broke the bottle of medicine and therefore all the drug manufacturers looked down on them. He asked her if she understood what they thought about him. Another man came up to her and hugged her and said that the girl was not at all to blame for the fact that he had not sold all the medicines, because they just like a blonde girl and everyone buys from them. The drunk man shouted that the grandmother and her granddaughter had become very annoying lately, and he did not want them to get in the way. He said he would kill her. Taking the trap, he went towards them. He shouted that he would teach them a lesson because all they had was a well and a persimmon. He didn't understand what they thought about themselves. The girl ran after him and shouted for him to calm down because he had drunk a lot. He shouted for her to shut up or he would trap her. Seeing her grandmother, the girl shouted at her not to go there and go another way since it was very dangerous there and her father was coming to her to harm her. But grandmother did not listen to her and continued on her way. The old woman paid for her ignorance and fell into a trap. The man also paid for his behavior. He drank water from the well, which the old woman poisoned. The little girl was in frantic shock. She couldn't believe her eyes. Cordelia looked at what happened and saw that the old woman had poisoned the well. She poured Laprax juice into it. She said that one sip could kill a person. The little girl stood and watched. She said she didn't do it. The witch said that the old woman did it. The blonde witch calmed her down and said that now they would not mock her and beat her like that. A lot happened in one night. Many people died. They knew these were accidents. One man was furious and asked his friend why he didn't stop him, but he was no less furious and said that he did everything in his power, but he did not listen to him. The people who stood in the cemetery asked them not to swear, because there was no time for that now. The blonde girl cried furiously. Everyone felt very sorry for her because they knew that she was left an orphan, and everyone said that she suffered a lot. The girl did not cry because the old woman died, because now there was no one to mock her, and the young man would not feel sorry for her or pay attention to her. The young boy approached the witch and hugged her. He said that even though she was left alone, she must be strong. Everyone was looking at them. They were discussing a little girl who stood and did not shed a single tear. People didn't understand how she could not cry because her father died. They were shocked even though he was not very good, but still a father is a father. They judged her at first and told her she couldn't achieve anything, but after a couple of years, she left for the big city. And when they heard the news, they were happy about her. And they said that they always believed in her and never doubted that she would be able to reach such heights. There were no more scapegoats left in the small town, and now people began to bully the little boy who was missing one arm. After all the girls, he was the only one left. Men are tired of bullying a little boy. They switched to Cordelia. They mocked her and also wanted to touch her. She decided to leave the town and told her friend about it, who said that they needed to add some drama before leaving. And she told her that she would prepare everything. Young Philippa carried out her plan. The blonde girl looked from afar and realized that this was beyond the bounds. She told her that it was too childish, but still her plan worked very well. After those actions, everyone walked around and cursed Cordelia. The young boy grabbed the witch and told her not to go home because Philippa had stolen the tomatoes again, and you wanted to make her an outcast. But when he realized what he had done, he began to feel embarrassed and apologize. She reassured him, saying that everything was fine, and asked why he did not write her letters. He said that he met Rita at night and therefore did not give the letter. He once again apologized to her for grabbing her so suddenly and said that he was too careless, even though he was in a hurry. The girl said that he should stop apologizing because he was already used to this, so everything is fine. He was perplexed. She said that yesterday the owner of the cigarette store also grabbed her. The young man was furious and asked if everything was okay with her or not. The girl calmed him down and said that she was fine and she managed to escape, and remembered that that night she secretly made him impotent. She said that the men from the town had very bad words for her. The boy said that this is not a reason to touch her without her consent. She approached him and said that he could touch her whenever he wanted. She allowed him. He moved away from her and said that it was too early for them to do this kind of thing and asked her not to do that again. Leaving, he said that she was not a thief or a girl of easy virtue, so she didn't do anything wrong and she's very good. She stood watching him go and knew that he was right. A month later, Philippa left the town in the guise of a witch. The girls stood and discussed what had happened. The blonde witch said that Philippa didn't need to go that far, but she said that she liked the boy, and she just wanted to help her. Cordelia said that even if many thousands of years pass, she will help her with everything she asks. Philippa laughed and said that she would be fine, and that it was a very fun and very entertaining experience for her. A young boy was telling a blonde girl that his friend was missing, and no one cares about him. He was worried about him since he couldn't wander somewhere alone and get into trouble. But she would have known that he went with Philippa and was in no danger. She told her young friend that the boy would be all right. After a long conversation, McCool proposed to his young witch. She was shocked because she knew that he was worthy of more, and not just marry an orphan. People couldn't stop gossiping about her, but still she became the most beautiful bride in the world, and her husband also became the most beautiful groom. McCool came home with a smile on his face and said that he had brought food. The blonde girl knew that all her troubles and disagreements with her mother-in-law were nothing compared to the fact that she had a loved one. The witch felt offended for herself. She could no longer tolerate such treatment. She expressed everything to her mother-in-law. She was furiously angry since her daughter-in-law said ugly words right in front of her friend. The witch couldn't understand why her friend Philippa thought people were so nice. The girl got tired of this treatment and decided to take a little revenge on her mother-in-law by using magic. When suddenly my beloved husband came to the house. This took her by surprise. All the guests began to run out of the house in a hurry, and her mother-in-law looked at her and told her son that his wife had caused all the commotion, and she was even worse than that old woman, saying that she was a true witch. He began to leave the house in a hurry, and finally he told his mother that he was no longer a boy who could be scolded. They left. His mother shouted that he could not leave since this was his home. Without turning around, he said that this was Cordelia's house, and she should leave as well. They left, and everyone furiously cast glances in their direction. His mother did not stop and continued to shout that the girl had spoiled him very much. Because he used to be a very good boy. She sobbed at the threshold and shouted with all her anger that the girl was a witch and that she is leading him around her finger. The girl pressed herself to her chest. She understood that her mother-in-law's words were partly true, but she didn't bewitch him. They moved to a big city. They had nothing with them. This was quite normal. Her husband constantly apologized that they were so poor. They went looking for work. They came to a man in a big city who could provide them with work. He looked at them and said that he could not find anything for the man. Looking at the woman, he said that she was capable of a lot, and he could find something for her. Hearing these words, the young man took his wife, thanked her, and said that they would find work elsewhere. He was angry with everyone and asked his wife for forgiveness because they left the small town without even preparing. She looked around and saw that there were a lot of women walking along the road. She realized that there were a lot of working women in the city. Then the idea came to her mind to open a cosmetics company. She prepared several products and sent her familiar to sell it. The girl coped with the task very well. The young witch created a product that can easily remove makeup. The men were a little perplexed, and they said that women constantly put on makeup for several hours in order to wash off all this beauty in an instant. This is too incomprehensible for their logic. But when the women heard this, they ran to the girl and gave all their money to buy a cleanser. With the proceeds from the sales, they bought themselves a beautiful 2-story house. They were very happy about it. Their peace did not last long. They had other concerns. On a fine evening, they left and heard a noise coming from the yard. One woman quarreled very loudly with her husband, who was perplexed as to why she had not prepared food for him. She told him that she had just come home from work and had not yet had time to prepare everything, but he was at the factory and shouted that she was earning small pennies, and she is not the only one in the family who works. The witch said that this did not concern them, but when the young girl was beaten very badly by her husband, Mikael brought her home and helped her treat the wound. He apologized for bringing her into the house, but he couldn't get past her. His wife understood this because he was very kind. The witch opened a cosmetics store and invited the girl to work for her. She showed her the documents where her salary was indicated. The woman was very happy about this turn of events and thanked her frantically. When she began to earn much more than her husband, he quit. She came to Mikael and cried furiously, due to the fact that he doesn't even look after the children, saying that he wants to open his own store. The witch expanded her store and created a children's corner on the second floor. The girl was very happy and thanked them, saying that she would do everything and give it her all. Every time the witch came home and saw how her beloved husband picked up and brought beaten women, the witch was furious and also perplexed as to why men could do this to poor girls. Mikael's sister Shira. He was glad that she stopped by to see them, and he asked how long they had not seen each other. She said that there was a lot of time, so much that she had already gotten married. The young beauty told the witch that she heard that they had opened a large enterprise. Cordelia said that they just opened a small store. The girl interrupted her and said that she shouldn't even be modest there because she knew that they had opened outstanding enterprises which brings very good income. She asked her if she would like to expand the service, if she would like to team up with her since she began to study cosmetics. The witch agreed. Shirley had complete control over the entire company. The girl met with the working women and said that they could do everything and asked them to try very hard. The witch wanted to buy the third floor and purchase the entire building so as not to pay rent. She achieved her goal. On the third floor, they had a children's center, a beauty salon on the second, and cosmetics on the first. She got rid of all interference. Returning home and her beloved husband was waiting for her, she was very happy. When they were alone, he asked her if it was time for them to have a child. Man lives to continue his race. Every living creature mates and reproduces. The girl stood and thought about how tired she was of her husband, but she was told that she had been divorced for a long time. The girl said that she could not stand him, but their baby was very good and cute, and now he cares about her. Another girl said that she likes that her son looks like her husband, since he is already in heaven. And when she looks at him, she constantly remembers her husband. The witch knew that survival instincts and emotions unite people, but she didn't need that. She was terrified by the thought that she would have to share her husband with someone else, especially if this someone is female. The man was very happy. He said that he really hoped that their baby would be like his wife. He told her that now the three of them could hold hands and walk all together, and it would be a lot of fun. Cordelia was very scared. She ran to her witch sisters and asked them for help. After many attempts, they finally did what she asked them to do. She decided to make sure that no one suspected her of being a witch. She knew she had to pretend she was giving birth to the baby. There were women in the hospital. They were very upset, since their hospital is made only for women, but it does not generate income, and they do not have a single patient. The blonde witch came crashing into their hospital and asked if she could give birth to them. She said she would pay them a lot of money, and he rents an entire floor from them, but she also asked them not to let anyone come to her. After she showered them with money at the hospital, they put the building in order and were incredibly happy about this turn of fate. They also didn't have a midwife, and the blonde witch brought her friend to help her and be by her side. Her friend said that her husband would come soon so that she could prepare for the difficult process. The girl sat exhausted but very happy. She held her little child in her arms. The witch knew that her husband would now be happy, because he got a real family, which he dreamed of a long time ago. At the workplace, all the employees were whispering about what a good husband their boss had. He was always polite and kind and also performed all household duties. She heard them whispering. This hurt her very much since she did not want to share with anyone her beloved young little boy, whom she had loved since she was 9 years old. He was young and very kind and has not changed a bit since then. When young women left work, men were always waiting for them nearby, namely a bunch of bandits. They always complained that the women stole their jobs. The girls discussed them. They knew that they were ordinary bandits. The men tried to reach with their vile hands not only the girls who worked, but also their boss. One late evening, when the girls went home and closed their office for the night, the bandits got in, looked at the goods, and discussed what they could steal. They were furious and destroyed everything that came their way. They not only destroyed everything that was around, they saw the beauty of the boss and told her not to blame them since they were just doing their job. They wanted to grab and abuse other girls, but the blonde witch did not allow them to do this. In a fit of rage and anger, she used magic and killed them all. The blonde witch was covered in blood, as was her outrageously beautiful dress. Her husband's sister accidentally saw her, and in a fit of fear, she decided to run away. But one witch stopped her. She caught her, hugged her, and calmed her down, holding her until she ran away again. She asked her friend what she would do if others saw it too. The witch asked what she would do about it. She said that she would most likely blow up the building and move to another city. Her husband's sister heard this and said that she couldn't do that. The girls were at a loss as to what she was talking about. She looked and said that the witch didn't do anything, and they weren't here at all. The witch remembered everything while sitting in a clean office. She knew that those men were very famous and that they might be wanted. Everyone saw them when they arrived late in the evening. The blonde witch did not understand why she had such problems and torment. She did everything in her power. She worked hard. Even her friend Philippa could say that she tried very hard, but she said that it was not enough. That same day, her husband came to her with a tearful daughter in his arms. He said strangers broke into their house. They said one was from the police, but he was sure that was not so. He said that they began to destroy their house and beat him. Therefore, he had to escape, taking one bag and his child from the house. He was bleeding. They asked him if he was okay. When men burst into their building, they were angry. One of the men told the ladies to calm down as they just wanted to talk to their shop owner. They said they just wanted to talk to the owner, but after hesitating, they said it was a witch. The girl was scared. She didn't want her husband to find out the truth about her. She didn't want him to reveal her terrible secret. One of the men said that he was aware that his guys went here late at night, and he doesn't believe that they just disappeared. He said he has many witnesses, a lot of his people visiting them. The blonde witch stood and looked at him intently. She didn't know what to answer. He furiously continued to say that she was a witch and humiliated her in front of everyone. Mikhail laughed at his words, and he apologized, saying that he should have been a little collected, but he could not resist such words from a man. The gang leader did not ask how one could laugh at such a time. He asked who Mikhail was, the witch's husband or her slave. After his words, he laughed even more. They all continued to make noise, but the little girl sat and listened to this ridiculous showdown. Some laughed, others shouted in anger. Mikhail laughed and remembered his youth when they were in a small town. His wife was also called a witch, and here she is also called a witch. The gang leader laughed and said that even the witch's husband admitted that she was a witch and he was her slave. The young girls who worked at the factory laughed furiously at his words. He was angry. He shouted that not everyone was a witch and called on them to realize their actions. And they stopped laughing at him. He pointed his fingers at them and said that not all the witches were laughing and pointing fingers at each other, asking one another, "Which one of them is actually a witch?" The blonde girl stood looking at everything that was happening, and I was in a frantic misunderstanding of what just happened. Why are they laughing? She stood and looked at all these people, and she understood that the people from the city were completely different. In her small town, they mocked and despised her. But in a big city, everything happened much simpler. She looked at her husband and thought that in her entire life she had never seen him as joyful and laughing as he was now. She looked at her husband and smiled furiously because for her there was nothing more pleasant and joyful than when he looked at her with such a big, beautiful smile. The gang owner was very angry because everyone was laughing at him. After all, they decided to disgrace him. The people who came with him tried to calm him down, but everything was even. The blonde witch stood with her beloved husband holding hands. She knew that people are very naive and stupid, but her husband was not like that. He made her rejoice. She loved him. For the sake of her love, she was ready to do anything. And so the boy and girl lived happily ever after, just like in any other fairy tale. But in a slightly strange way, they had a different love. Witchy. The witch and the boy lived many happy years. The witch had never known a happier time in all her long years of existence. The girls were sitting in a cafe and discussing women's cosmetics. One of the girls told the other that her great-grandmother never used another brand of cosmetics. She really liked the brand of only one company, which was very good in quality. She said they were very successful, and that someone wrote that the founder is a witch, and even the customers are called witches. Representatives of the company at one time decided to take advantage of the moment of fame and popularity, and even named the company Witch Boutique. The girl asked how she knew so much. She said that her great-grandmother was the deputy president. The girl stood and cried furiously. One of the witches asked her why she was standing here and not going to her father and not spending the last minutes of her life with him. She just said that the hostess told her to be here. The witch and the boy lived together for more than 50 years, and in the last minutes of breathing, he lay on the bed with tenderness in his eyes and a smile on your face. "I was talking to my beautiful wife." He said he felt very young. Cordelia sat next to his bed and cried furiously. She told him that since he became an old grandfather, he was wonderful and handsome, just like now, and in my early years, he remembered his sister who was taken away by the epidemic. He said that he was behaving very stupidly in front of his beloved wife. The man told her that they spent a lot of time with her and they had a very good relationship, but unfortunately there were many trials that fortunately they overcame and went through together to the end. The blonde witch didn't understand what she could do. She wanted to use magic, use necromancy, do everything so that the young man could live for many thousands of years with her. She wanted him to know that she was a witch. He looked at her with tenderness in his eyes and said that she looked like his first love from his former youth. She looked at him in bewilderment. "I don't know what to answer." He said that when he was 9, he visited his relatives who lived very far away. She didn't understand why he was saying this now. She wondered if people really begin to become stupid and say strange things before old age or at the moment of death. He talked about how his mother took his young sister's savings and bought him a new jacket, adding that his mother never even bought small hairpins for his sisters. But unfortunately, his mother never saw that jacket again. The girl did not understand why he was telling her this. She could only accept the fact that she was very similar to his first love, sobbing. She reproached herself for not having met her husband earlier when he was very young or even in infancy. The man continued to tell his story. He said that his mother did not see the jacket because a witch hunt had suddenly begun in the city, and they went to look for the witch. He knew that there was no witch hunt, and lustful men just wanted to find and rape the girl. And then, for the first time, he saw a wounded, beaten, innocent girl. The witch realized that it was her the moment she fell in love with him. She was very happy to hear this from him. He said that the girl was beautiful, and he fell in love with her at first sight. He asked his wife if she wanted to defeat the tree or trample the ground or do something else. She was at a loss as to what he was talking about. He said he had seen her angry since she was a baby. The way she did all these things, he said that he really liked it when she tried to look very nice in front of him. She asked him if he would love her when he found out that she was a witch. He looked at her, his eyes filled with frantic misunderstanding. She laughed and said that she was speaking figuratively since she had heard this many times in childhood, and even now hears such words addressed to her. He looked at her. Love, respect, and understanding were visible in his eyes. He said that she was always his love and wife. He simply smiled and said that she was his sweet witch. The girl looked at him and realized that even if he returned to life, he would not be able to return to their unforgettable moments. Even if he could go back to this moment, he wouldn't say the same words to her. Her husband looked at her and said that it didn't matter to him who she was. He loved her and would continue to love her forever. Having said that he will keep their moments in his memory. With tears in her eyes, she looked and said that she loved him too, and would keep all their moments in her heart. She knew she had to finish here and now. This will be the most humane and beautiful way she wanted to tell her friend Philippa her beautiful love story. She wanted to tell the whole world about her fierce love, which would live with her forever. It was her wonderful, unforgettable fairy tale.